Welcome to this complete beginner-friendly guide on installing Laravel using XAMPP, Composer, and Artisan. In this video, we will walk step-by-step through the entire installation process so you can confidently create your first Laravel application, even if you are starting from scratch. Laravel is a modern and powerful PHP framework used to build professional, secure, and scalable web applications. To run Laravel on your local computer, you need a proper development environment, and that is exactly what we are going to set up today. We begin with step 1, installing XAMPP. XAMPP is a free software package that includes Apache, MySQL, PHP, and other essential components required to run PHP applications. Think of it as your all-in-one local server environment. Visit the official XAMPP website, download the version that matches your operating system, and follow the simple installation steps. Once installed, open the XAMPP control panel and start both Apache and MySQL. Apache acts as your web server, while MySQL manages your database. When both services show a green running status, your local server environment is ready. Next, we move to step 2, installing Composer. Composer is a dependency manager for PHP, and Laravel cannot be installed without it. Composer automatically downloads all the libraries and packages that Laravel needs to function. Go to the official Composer website and download the installer. During installation, make sure that Composer correctly detects your PHP executable inside the XAMPP folder, usually located under XAMPP/PHP. Once the installation completes, open your command prompt or terminal and type composer-version. If you see version details, Composer is successfully installed on your system. Now we are ready for step 3, creating a new Laravel project. This step is where your actual Laravel application begins. Open your command prompt and navigate to the folder where you want your project to be stored. Then type the command composer create-project Laravel/Laravel space example app. Composer will automatically download Laravel and set up all required files and folders. This process may take a few minutes depending on your internet speed. Once it finishes, navigate inside your new project folder by typing cd example app. You now have a complete Laravel project installed on your machine. Finally, we reach step 4, running the Laravel development server. To start your project and view it in the browser, use the built-in Laravel command phpArtisan serve. Laravel will start a lightweight development server and display a local URL, usually http://127.0.0.1:8000. Copy and paste this address into your web browser. If everything is set up correctly, you will see the Laravel welcome page, confirming that your project is active and working perfectly. By following these 4 simple but essential steps, installing XAMPP, installing Composer, creating a Laravel project, and running the Artisan server, you now have a fully functional Laravel development environment. From here, you can begin building routes, controllers, databases, authentication systems, APIs, and complete web applications. This setup is the foundation of every Laravel project, so understanding it well will help you throughout your entire development journey.
Installing Laravel with Composer, XAMPP, and using Artisan can seem confusing at first, but once you understand what each part of the process does and why it matters, everything becomes much clearer. Think of Laravel as the main framework you want to run, the powerful engine behind your web application. Composer acts as the tool that downloads and manages Laravel's core files along with any additional packages your project might need in the future. XAMPP is the local server environment that provides PHP and MySQL, which are essential for Laravel to operate correctly on your computer. And finally, Artisan is Laravel's built-in command line assistant, designed to help you run important tasks, such as starting the development server, clearing caches, generating controllers, and much more. When you see these tools working together, you'll realize you're simply preparing a stable foundation for Laravel to operate smoothly. To summarize the workflow visually, imagine a simple chain. You start by installing the Laravel framework using Composer. Composer pulls the framework files from the internet and places them into your chosen project folder. Once Laravel is installed, XAMPP steps in as your local server environment,
giving you Apache to serve your application and MySQL to store your data. After that, you use Artisan commands from the terminal to interact with Laravel. The most common command is phpArtisan serve, which launches a local development server and gives you a link like http://127.0.0.1:8000. When you open this link in your browser, you see the Laravel welcome page, confirming that everything is working exactly as it should. This entire process may look technical, but once you follow it step by step, you'll realize how organized and beginner-friendly it actually is. What makes this installation flow so important is that it prepares you for real-world Laravel development. Every professional Laravel project begins with Composer, runs on a server environment like XAMPP or Docker, and uses Artisan for development tasks. By learning these steps now, you're building the same habits and workflow that experienced developers use every day. Not only does this setup let you build applications locally, but it also helps you understand how Laravel interacts with PHP, databases, and command line tools. As soon as you complete this setup, you're officially ready to start coding, building routes, creating views, connecting databases, and exploring everything Laravel has to offer. Before diving deeper into the installation steps, it's important to clearly understand the main tools involved in Laravel development and how they work together. Laravel itself is a powerful PHP framework, which means it is a collection of libraries, structures, and built-in tools designed to help you build web applications much faster and more efficiently than writing everything from plain PHP. Laravel provides routing, which helps your application decide what each URL does. It handles database interaction, allowing you to store, update, and retrieve data with minimal effort. It also manages views, templates, authentication, security, and dozens of other features that come ready to use. Instead of building these critical components from scratch every time, Laravel gives you a modern framework that takes care of the hard work so you can focus on creating your application's logic and features. Next, let's talk about XAMPP, which plays a major role in running Laravel locally. XAMPP is a convenient package that bundles together Apache, which is your web server, MySQL or MariaDB, which is your database server, PHP, which is the programming language Laravel is built on, and other useful tools like phpMyAdmin. Since Laravel requires PHP and usually needs a database, using XAMPP means you get everything installed at once without worrying about setting up each component separately. When Apache and MySQL are running inside XAMPP, your computer essentially becomes a mini server capable of running Laravel applications exactly like a real web server would. Composer is another essential tool you'll use constantly as a Laravel developer. Composer is a dependency manager for PHP, meaning it downloads and manages the third-party libraries that Laravel depends on. Laravel is built using many external packages, and Composer keeps them updated, organized, and ready to use. When you type commands like composer create project, Composer downloads Laravel and sets up the entire framework for you. Later, when you install additional packages, for example, payment gateways, authentication tools, or API clients, Composer handles all of that behind the scenes. It's one of the most important tools in modern PHP development. Finally, we have Artisan, which is Laravel's command line tool. Artisan is the developer's assistant that helps automate many common tasks. You use Artisan to start the development server, generate controllers and models, run database migrations, clear caches, manage configuration files, and much more. Instead of doing everything manually, Artisan provides simple commands that speed up your workflow and help you stay organized. Almost every part of Laravel development involves Artisan commands, so becoming comfortable with it is a major step toward becoming a confident Laravel developer. Understanding how these tools fit together, Laravel as the framework, Composer as the package manager, XAMPP as the local server environment, and Artisan as your command line helper gives you a strong foundation before starting any Laravel project. Once you know what each tool does, the entire installation and development process becomes far less confusing and much easier to follow. To begin the actual setup, the first thing you need to install is XAMPP, because Laravel requires a working PHP environment to run. Without PHP installed properly, neither Laravel nor Composer will function. Start by visiting the official XAMPP download page and select the Windows version that includes a compatible PHP version. For modern Laravel releases, PHP version 8.1 or higher is recommended, so make sure the XAMPP version you choose contains that. Once selected, download the installer and run it. During the installation process, you will be asked to choose which components to include. At the very least, make sure Apache, MySQL, PHP, and phpMyAdmin are selected. These are the core components Laravel depends on. Everything else can remain at the default settings unless you have a specific reason to customize them. XAMPP usually installs into the directory c:\XAMPP, which is the recommended and most common location. After the installation completes, open the XAMPP control panel. This is where you manage the server modules that Laravel needs. Inside the control panel, you will see modules like Apache and MySQL listed along with Start buttons next to each one. Click Start for both Apache and MySQL. When these services start successfully, the background behind each module will turn green and display a running status. This indicates that your local server environment is active. To confirm that Apache is working correctly, open your web browser and type in http://localhost into the address bar. If you see the XAMPP welcome page or dashboard, that means your server is functioning properly and XAMPP has been installed successfully. At this point, your computer has everything it needs to run PHP code, handle database operations, and serve web pages locally, which means you're ready to install Composer and set up Laravel next. This step is crucial because without XAMPP running in the background, Laravel won't be able to process requests or connect to a database. Once Apache and MySQL are active and steady, you have a stable environment ready for the next stage of your Laravel installation.
Next, you will need to install Composer because Laravel is downloaded, installed, and managed through Composer. Without Composer, you cannot create a Laravel project. Begin by visiting the official Composer website and downloading the composer.setup.exe installer for Windows. Once the installer launches, it will guide you through several steps, and one of the most important steps is selecting the correct PHP executable. Here, you must make sure to point Composer to the PHP version that came with XAMPP. This file is typically located at c:\XAMPP/php/php.exe. Selecting the XAMPP PHP file ensures that both XAMPP and Composer are using the same PHP environment, which avoids conflicts later on. After selecting the PHP executable, continue clicking Next through the remaining steps of the installer. Composer will automatically add itself to your system's path during installation. This is important because it allows you to run Composer commands from any directory in the command prompt. When the installation is finished, it's time to verify that everything is working correctly. Open the command prompt by pressing Windows+R, typing CMD, and pressing Enter. In the command prompt window, type Composer --V. If Composer is installed correctly, you will see a version message, usually something like Composer version 2.x.x. This confirms that Composer is recognized globally and ready to use. With Composer successfully installed and linked to your XAMPP KHP environment, you now have everything required to install Laravel itself. Composer will handle downloading the Laravel framework, managing all dependencies, and creating the project structure for you. This step completes the foundation of your Laravel setup, and you are now fully prepared to move forward to creating your first Laravel project. At this stage, you should also verify that PHP itself is recognized in your command prompt. This is important because Laravel and Artisan rely on PHP commands to run properly. To check this, open a command prompt window and type php-v. Ideally, you should see the PHP version information appear on the screen, and this version should match the PHP version included in your XAMPP installation. If the PHP version appears successfully, then your system is correctly configured. However, if you see an error saying that PHP is not recognized as an internal or external command,
That means Windows does not know where PHP is located, and PHP's folder has not been added to your system path. Although you can still use PHP by typing its full file path, for example, c:\xampp/php/php.exe, this becomes inconvenient very quickly, especially when running Artisan commands. A better solution is to add PHP to your system path so that the PHP command can be used from any directory. To do this, click the Windows Start menu and search for Environment Variables. Open the Environment Variables settings window, and under the bottom section labeled System Variables, find the entry named Path. Select it, click Edit, and then click New. Now paste the path to your XAMPP PHP folder, which is usually c:\xampp/php. After adding it, click OK on all the windows to save your changes. Once you have updated the path, close the command prompt and open a new one. This refreshes the environment settings. Now type php-v again. If everything is configured correctly, PHP's version information should appear without errors, confirming that PHP has been successfully added to the path. This simple but crucial step ensures that commands like PHP Artisan will run smoothly without needing to type out the full PHP path every time. With PHP, Composer, and XAMPP all properly configured, you're now fully prepared to create and run your first Laravel project. Now that your environment is fully prepared and both PHP and Composer are working correctly, you can move on to creating a new Laravel project. This is done directly through Composer. Before running the command, it's a good idea to create a dedicated folder on your system where you will keep all your Laravel projects. For example, you might create a folder named c:\laravel\projects. You can make this folder using File Explorer or by typing mkdir c:\laravel\projects in your command prompt. Once the folder is created, navigate into it by typing cd c:\laravel\projects. This ensures that your new Laravel project will be placed neatly inside the folder you prepared. To create a new Laravel project, use the Composer command. Composer create project Laravel/Laravel MyApp. In this case, MyApp is simply the name of your project folder. You can replace it with any valid folder name, such as blog, store, portfolio, or anything that describes the application you're building. When you run this command, Composer will begin downloading the complete Laravel framework along with all required dependencies. It will generate the folder structure and place everything inside c:\laravel\projects\MyApp. The first time you run this command, it may take a few minutes because Composer needs to fetch many packages from the internet. You will see progress messages like installing dependencies, generating files, and loading Composer repositories. This is completely normal. Once the process is complete, your new Laravel project will be fully created, and you will see a complete folder structure containing directories like app, bootstrap, config, public, resources, routes, storage, tests, and more. At this point, your Laravel project is ready for use, and you can begin developing features or launch the development server using Artisan in the next step. After Composer finishes creating your Laravel project, the next step is to navigate into your new project directory. You can do this by typing cd c:\laravel projects\MyApp in your command prompts. Once inside, you will see many files and folders that make up the core of a Laravel application. At first glance, the structure may seem overwhelming, but having a simple mental map makes it much easier to understand. The app directory contains the main application logic, including your models, your controllers, and other backend components. This is where most of your core PHP code will live as your project grows. The routes directory contains files such as web.php and api.php, which define which URLs correspond to which pieces of code. Whenever you create a new page or route, this is where you define it. The resources/views directory holds your Blade templates. Blade is Laravel's built-in templating engine, and it allows you to write dynamic HTML pages efficiently. These view files are essentially your application's front-end structure. As you build pages, layouts, and components, this is where they will be stored. Next, you'll find the public directory, which is the web-accessible folder in your Laravel application. This folder contains the index.php file, which serves as the front controller for the entire framework. When users visit your site, this is the file that handles incoming requests and directs them into the rest of your Laravel application. In the root of your project, you will also notice a file named .env, which stands for environment variables. This file is extremely important because it controls settings for your application, such as your database connection details, your application name, debug mode, and other sensitive configurations. Whenever you need to connect Laravel to MySQL, this is the file you'll edit. Additionally, you'll see a file named Artisan, which serves as the main entry point for all Laravel Artisan commands. Anytime you run commands like phpArtisan serve or phpArtisan make:\controller, you are interacting with this file. Understanding these key directories and files will give you a strong foundation and help you navigate Laravel's structure with confidence. To finally see your Laravel application in action, you can start Laravel's built-in development server using Artisan. Before running the command, make sure you are inside your project folder, which in this example is c:\laravel-projects\myapp. Once you are inside the correct directory, type the command phpArtisan serve. If PHP has been properly added to your system path, Artisan will immediately start a development server and display a message that looks like starting Laravel development server at http://127.0.0.1:8000. This means the local server is running and ready for you to open in your browser. Next, open any browser, such as Chrome, Edge, or Firefox, and go to http://127.0.0.1:8000, or simply http://localhost:/8000. You should now see Laravel's default welcome page, which features the Laravel logo and links to documentation. Seeing this page confirms several important things. Your Laravel installation is working correctly, Composer downloaded everything properly, XAMPP's PHP is functioning exactly as it should, and Artisan is fully operational. This is the moment where your entire setup comes together successfully. While the development server is running, keep in mind that your command prompt window must remain open. The server stays active only as long as that terminal window is running the process. If you want to stop the server, simply return to the command prompt and press Ctrl+C on your keyboard. The server will shut down immediately. You can always restart it later by running phpArtisan serve again. Now that you can run your Laravel app locally, you're ready to start building routes, controllers, views, and full application features. Most real Laravel applications require a database to store information such as users, posts, products, or any other type of data your project needs. Since you installed XAMPP earlier, you already have both MySQL and phpMyAdmin included. To get started, open the XAMPP control panel and make sure the MySQL module is running. Once MySQL is active, open your browser and go to http://localhost/phpMyAdmin. This will take you to phpMyAdmin, a browser-based tool that lets you easily create and manage databases, tables, and users without needing to write SQL manually. To create a new database for your Laravel project, click on the Databases tab at the top of phpMyAdmin. You will see a field labeled Create Database. In that field, type the name you want for your database, such as myapp_db. You can choose any name you prefer, but it's a good idea to keep it simple and consistent with your project. Next, choose a collation. The default collation works fine, but many developers prefer UTF-8MB4_general_CI, which provides better character support. After selecting the collation, click the Create button. Once you click Create, phpMyAdmin will instantly generate a new empty database for you. You should see a confirmation message indicating that the database has been created successfully. At this point, your MySQL database is ready and waiting to be used by Laravel. All that remains is to connect Laravel to this database through your .env configuration file, which we'll cover next. This step ensures that your Laravel application can store, read, and manage data using MySQL.
Next, you need to tell Laravel about the database you just created. Laravel reads its environment settings through a special file called .env, located in the root folder of your project. To update your database configuration, open the .env file using a text editor such as Visual Studio Code, Notepad++, or any editor you prefer. Inside this file, you will see several environment variables, including the ones used for database configuration. These lines will look something like db_connection equals MySQL, db_host equals 127.0.0.1, db_port equals 3306, db_database equals Laravel, and db_username equals root, and db_password equals blank. To connect Laravel to the MySQL database you created earlier, for example, myapp_db, you simply update these lines. Change db_database to match the exact database name you created in phpMyAdmin. Usually, on local XAMPP installations, the database username is root and the password field is left empty unless you manually set one. The host remains 127.0.0.1, and the port stays as 3306, which is the default MySQL port in XAMPP. Once you update these values, save the .env file and close your editor. These changes tell Laravel which database to use, how to connect to it, and under what credentials. From this point on, any Laravel migration or database query will automatically use the database linked in your .env file. This simple step completes the connection between Laravel and MySQL, enabling your application to store and retrieve data seamlessly.
You now need to adjust the database configuration values inside the .env file to match the database you created and the MySQL user you are using. For a standard XAMPP installation, the MySQL host is 127.0.0.1, the port is 3306, the default MySQL username is usually root, and in most cases, the password field remains empty unless you manually set a password in phpMyAdmin. If you created a database called myapp_db, simply update the database configuration section in your .env file to reflect those values. Your updated .env settings should look like this. db_connection equals MySQL, db_host equals 127.0.0.1, db_port equals 3306, db_database equals myapp_db, db_username equals root, and db_password equals blank. These values tell Laravel exactly how to connect to your MySQL server. The database name must match the one you created in phpMyAdmin, and the username and password must match the MySQL user credentials you're using. In most beginner setups using XAMPP, the username is root and the password is left empty. After entering these values, save the .env file. It's important to remember that Laravel reads this file every time it needs to connect to the database, which means any future changes to your database settings should also be made here. With the .env file correctly configured, your Laravel project is now fully connected to your MySQL database. This means you are ready to run migrations, create tables, and start building real application features that interact with your data. This small but essential step ensures that Laravel has everything it needs to communicate with your database smoothly. If your MySQL root user has a password, you need to place that password after db_password equals inside your .env file. Simply type the password directly after the equal sign with no spaces. Once updated, save the .env file. Laravel will now use these values whenever it needs to connect to your database, whether during migrations, when interacting with tables through eloquent models, or when performing any database-related operation. In a typical XAMPP setup for beginners, the password is often left empty, which is completely fine for local development. However, if you did set a MySQL password for your root user, you must enter it here,
or Laravel will not be able to connect to the database and will produce connection errors. Laravel uses the information in your .env file during two important processes. First, during migrations, which are instructions that create or modify your database tables, and second, during normal application usage through Eloquent ORM, which is the system Laravel uses to communicate with your database using models. Each time your application needs to access the database, it refers to these .env settings to know which server to connect to, which database to use, and what username and password to authenticate with. Because the .env file often contains sensitive information, Laravel does not include it in version control, which helps protect your credentials. With the .env file properly configured, whether your password is empty or filled, you now have a fully operational connection between Laravel and MySQL. This completes the core setup required to begin building real database-driven features. The next step is to run your first migration and allow Laravel to automatically create tables inside the database you just configured. Laravel also requires an application key, which is used for encryption, secure sessions, and several other security-related features within your application. Normally, when you install Laravel using the Composer Create Project command, the installer automatically runs the key generation process for you. However, to be completely sure your application key is correctly set, it is always a good practice to generate it manually as well. To do this, open your command prompt, make sure you are inside your Laravel project folder, and run the command phpArtisan key generate. When you run this command, Laravel will automatically generate a long, random encryption key and update the APP key entry inside your .env file. After the command executes, you should see a confirmation message that says application key set successfully. This message means that the encryption key has been written to your .env file and your application's encryption system is now fully configured. You can open the .env file to verify that the APP key field has been updated with the new value. This key is extremely important. It ensures that sensitive data, such as encrypted cookies, secure tokens, and user sessions, is properly protected. Because of this, you should always keep your application key private and never share it publicly. Also keep in mind that regenerating the application key after your project is already storing encrypted data can invalidate that existing data, so it should only be done during initial setup or when absolutely necessary. With your application key correctly configured, your Laravel project now meets all security requirements needed to operate safely. At this point in your Laravel journey, it's a great idea to start getting comfortable with Artisan because you'll be using it constantly throughout development. Artisan is Laravel's built-in command line tool, and almost every important task you perform, from creating controllers to generating models, running migrations, clearing caches, and managing configurations, will be done through Artisan commands. All Artisan commands follow the same simple pattern, phpArtisan followed by the specific command you want to run. To explore everything Artisan can do, open your command prompt inside your Laravel project and type phpArtisan list. This will display a complete list of available commands organized by categories such as make, migrate, cache, config, and many more. You will notice that each namespace represents a group of commands with its own purpose. For example, commands under the make namespace are used to generate new classes, such as controllers, models, and migrations. Commands under migrate are used to run and manage your database migrations. The cache section helps you clear and manage application caches, while config allows you to refresh configuration files. These grouped commands make it easy for beginners to understand what each tool does and how it fits into the development workflow. One of the most common commands you have already used is phpArtisan serve, which starts Laravel's local development server. As you continue building real-world applications, Artisan will become one of your most valuable tools. Instead of creating files manually or performing tasks that take time, Artisan lets you automate them with a single command. Understanding and practicing these commands early on will help you work more efficiently, prevent errors, and follow Laravel's best development practices. Think of Artisan as your personal assistant inside Laravel. It's always ready to help you generate code, manage databases, and speed up your workflow.
Another powerful feature of Laravel is its ability to generate code automatically using Artisan. One of the most commonly used commands for this is phpArtisan make controller, which creates controller classes for you. For example, if you run phpArtisan make controller home controller, Laravel will instantly create a new file called homecontroller.php inside the app/http/controllers directory. This saves you time and ensures your controllers follow Laravel's recommended structure. But controllers aren't the only thing you can generate. Laravel also allows you to generate models and migrations with similar commands. For instance, running phpArtisan make model post -m will create a post model inside the app directory and also generate a corresponding migration file inside the database/migrations folder. The migration file that gets created defines the structure of your database table, things like columns, data types, and timestamps. This file can be edited before running the migration, allowing you to add fields such as title, content, or user ID depending on the table you want to build. Once you're ready, you can apply your migration to the database by running phpArtisan migrate. Laravel will then scan all migration files that haven't been executed yet and run them in order, creating or modifying tables in your MySQL database according to the instructions defined in each migration file. If everything in your .env file is configured correctly, the migrations will run smoothly, and Laravel will create the appropriate tables inside your database. However, if the database connection information is incorrect, such as a wrong username, wrong password, or wrong database name, Laravel will show a helpful error message telling you that the connection failed. This is a useful hint to go back and check your database configuration. Once migrations are running successfully, you have fully connected Laravel to your database and are ready to build real features that store and retrieve data.
As you continue working with Laravel, you'll frequently adjust settings, edit configuration files, and update your .env environment variables. When these kinds of changes don't seem to take effect immediately, it's usually because Laravel has cached old configuration values. This is where Artisan's cache and configuration commands become incredibly helpful. For example, running phpArtisan cache clear wipes Laravel's application cache, ensuring that outdated data is removed. Similarly, the command phpArtisan config clear clears Laravel's cached configuration settings, forcing the framework to reload fresh values directly from your .env file and your config directory. These commands are especially useful when you update something in your .env file, like your database credentials, mail settings, or application URL, and Laravel still behaves as if nothing changed. Instead of guessing what went wrong, simply open your command prompt inside your project and run both commands, phpArtisan cache clear and then phpArtisan config clear. After running them, you'll usually see green confirmation messages such as application cache cleared and configuration cache cleared. This is Laravel confirming that the cached values have been flushed and replaced with updated settings. Whenever you notice unexpected behavior after making configuration changes, particularly when .env updates don't seem to apply, remember that clearing the cache is often the solution. These commands help keep your development environment consistent and avoid confusion caused by stale configuration data. They're quick to run, safe to use, and essential tools as your project grows more complex.
To confirm that everything in your Laravel setup is working end-to-end, and to make sure you can actually control what your application displays, you can test the routing system.
Laravel stores its web routes inside the file routes/web.php. Open this file in your code editor and you will see a default route that returns the welcome view. This route responds to the root URL, meaning when you visit http://127.0.0.1:8000, Laravel loads the welcome.blade.php template. To test your setup further, you can add your own simple route. For example, add the following route inside the web.php file. route:/get/hello function return hello Laravel. This small route maps the URL /hello to a closure function that simply returns a text response saying hello Laravel.
After saving the file, make sure your development server is running by using php Artisan serve, and then open your browser and go to http://127.0.0.1:8000/hello. If everything is working correctly, you should see the message displayed on the screen. This confirms that your Laravel framework, routing system, configuration, and server setup are all functioning exactly as they should. Being able to edit routes and immediately see the results is an important milestone. It shows that your application is fully under your control and ready for further development. From here, you can begin creating controllers, connecting views, building dynamic pages, and eventually developing full application features.
After saving your changes to the web.php file, make sure your Laravel development server is still running by using the command phpArtisan serve. If the server is already running, you can leave it as it is. Now open your browser and go to http://localhost:8000/hello. If everything has been set up correctly, you should see the plain text message, "Hello Laravel," displayed on the screen. This simple output confirms that your routing system is functioning properly and that you are able to define new paths and responses inside your application. Although this may feel like a small step, it's actually a very important milestone. Seeing your custom route working means your entire development environment is behaving exactly as expected. It confirms that PHP is installed correctly, Laravel is running without issues, Composer dependencies are functioning, and Artisan commands are working smoothly. It also proves that your code changes are being processed by Laravel in real time. This successful test shows that your full system, from XAMPP to Composer to Laravel, is working together perfectly. With this verification complete, you now have a fully operational Laravel setup and a working understanding of route creation. This is the foundation you'll build on as you move into controllers, views, models, migrations, and eventually full application development.
At this stage, it's helpful to zoom out and look at the entire Laravel development stack so you can understand how all the pieces work together. Installing Laravel with Composer, setting up XAMPP, and using Artisan may seem like many separate steps, but in reality, they form a layered system where each part supports the others. XAMPP provides your local PHP runtime and MySQL database server. These are the essential components that Laravel needs in order to run your code and store your application's data. Composer sits above that layer as the tool responsible for downloading, updating, and managing Laravel's framework files and all the additional packages your project may require. Laravel itself sits on top as the main framework where you write your application's logic. This includes your routes, your controllers, your models, and your views. The routing system determines how your application responds to different URLs. Controllers handle requests, gather data, and pass information to models or views. Models talk to the database and represent your data in the application, and views generate the HTML that users see when they visit your website. All of these layers communicate with each other, creating a smooth workflow where requests flow in from the browser, pass through routes and controllers, interact with models, and finally return a rendered view. Artisan ties everything together by giving you a powerful command line interface for managing your project. Whether you are generating new classes, running migrations, clearing caches, or starting the development server, Artisan helps automate these tasks so you can focus on building features instead of managing files manually. When you see all of these layers working together, PHP, MySQL, Composer, Laravel's core framework, and Artisan, you begin to understand the full development environment that makes Laravel such a productive and enjoyable tool for building modern web applications.
Artisan is the command line interface that ties your entire Laravel workflow together. It's the tool you use to serve your application, generate new code, and manage your database schema. When you install XAMPP, configure Composer to use XAMPP's PHP, and then create a new Laravel project using Composer Create Project, you're setting up all the foundational pieces that Artisan depends on. Once the project has been created, you start your application with PHP Artisan Serve, which launches Laravel's built-in development server. This allows you to view your app in the browser and test your routes, controllers, and views in real time. After that, setting up a MySQL database with phpMyAdmin and configuring your .env file ensures that Laravel can connect to the database layer provided by XAMPP. This matters because many Artisan commands like migrations, model generation, or seeding directly integrate with your database. For example, PHP Artisan make controller instantly generates controller files, PHP Artisan make model creates models, and PHP Artisan migrate applies your database schema changes. All of these commands rely on the environment you just set up, the local PHP runtime from XAMPP, the package management handled by Composer, and the structured framework that Laravel provides. When you see these pieces working together, Composer downloading your project, XAMPP powering PHP and MySQL, Laravel organizing your controllers, routes, models, and blade templates, and Artisan automating your commands, you begin to understand the full workflow of Laravel development. It's a layered system where each component has a clear role, and Artisan acts as the control center that helps you generate, manage, and run everything with just a few commands. This is what makes Laravel development efficient, powerful, and enjoyable, especially as your applications grow more complex.
At this point, you've successfully built a complete beginner-friendly development environment using XAMPP, Composer, and Laravel. You now understand how Laravel's routes, controllers, models, views, and database configuration come together to form the core of a modern PHP web application. From here, the natural next step is learning how to build full CRUD functionality: create, read, update, and delete. These four operations form the backbone of almost every web application, whether you're building a blog, a product catalog, a user dashboard, or a complete enterprise system. CRUD in Laravel is built using the exact tools you just learned: migrations to define your database structure, eloquent models to interact with data, controllers and routes to handle application logic, and blade templates to display and collect information from users. All four parts work together in a continuous flow. First, you create a migration file that defines a database table, such as a post table with columns for a title, body, and timestamps. Then you generate a model that maps to that table and gives you easy access to database records. Next, you build a controller with methods for displaying data, saving new records, editing existing ones, and deleting entries. Finally, your blade templates serve as the user interface, allowing visitors to view lists of posts, fill in forms, and interact with your application. When all these steps come together, you have a complete CRUD system. Users can create items, view them, update them, and remove them from your database. This is the foundation of nearly every dynamic website. If you'd like, I can walk you through a full CRUD example step by step, using the exact Laravel setup you now understand, starting with migrations, moving through models and controllers, and finishing with simple blade templates and forms. This will give you a real project you can build on and help strengthen your understanding of how Laravel works in practice.